This conference will now be recorded.
Lake Garfield Committee meeting, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 members present, and I can't really see on the meeting.
I think two.
The virtual meeting, but
Greg.
so Greg's on there too. So anyway, we have a forum.
Hillary and Ken Wagner on
Yes,
there.
Hillary is there. Is Ken Wagner there?
Yep. It's in the top center.
Yeah.
Hand on his head.
So we'll open the meeting, and I don't know, should we do the minutes? Yes.
Sure.
Okay, so everyone got to see the minutes? And anyone want to make a motion? To accept? I second. All in favor?
Aye.
That good? Dennis normally does all this stuff. So the main agenda here is to plan our presentation to the Conservation Commission, hopefully in September. But both Ken Wagner, who's graciously, without getting paid, be our consultant on this, because he knows the most about all this, because he was one of the main authors in the guidelines for lakes, and Ken can explain it more, but he was intimately involved in it. And then when they went out for public comments just a couple months ago, they had stripped a lot of the information out, the science out, but Ken can explain it more to you. So he's not particularly happy with how that went. But he definitely has some ideas about it should go. And Hillary and Ken have talked together about this. So I'm just going to leave it to the two of them to explain what our options are for going to Concom. So you guys want to unmute yourself and argue with each other or whatever?
Hi, everybody. I'm Hillary, and I think one of the things that I had previously spoken about with Ken and also Mike, the Mass Wetlands Western Division Circuit Rider for the Wetlands Protection Act, Mark Stinson, told me that he was going to advise the commission that if the town submitted for an amendment to what was supposed to be a 3-foot drawdown permit that was granted at the end of last year in time for the drawdown, that it would be considered a significant difference, and he was going to suggest a new NOI.
And Ken, you have a different view on that.
It's not a different view. That's what he told her. The point is, you did a 6-foot drawdown for, I don't know how many, over a decade, right?
Well, longer than that. The dam is since 1972, and ever since then they've been drawing down. There's a little bit of debate on some years if they alternate between 3 and 6 feet. That's what we heard.
That goes back even further. I'm just not sure. The point is, it's been a while. It's not like you've never done this before.
Last probably
and
50.
all you're really doing is saying, we went along with what you guys said. We did 3 foot instead of 6 foot for a year, and look what we got for it. This is awful. We need to go back to what we were doing before. It's just an amendment in that it's a significant difference from 3 foot, but it's not a significant difference from what you've been doing for years. Now, that's my opinion that you could call it an amendment. My opinion doesn't matter. What's going to matter is the Conservation Commission and the DEP. The commission, if they have any guts at all, should be pretty angry with DEP for having misled them like this. But the DEP could, in fact, appeal it, which will then delay you. Personally, I would love them to do that. They've shown no backbone in anything in 20 years. And for them to actually do that would be a real shock. But if they did, it would be an opportunity for me to publicly embarrass them for how they've mishandled this whole thing. That doesn't really help us. If you go the other route where you submit a new NOI, you now have to go back through all the review steps you did before. That means it has to start at natural heritage because you have protected species in the lake. Natural heritage gets at least 30 days, and then you can have your hearing. So you're going to be delayed somewhat if you don't start real quickly on that. Natural heritage has approved this in the past, so there's no reason they shouldn't now, except that they're part of Fisheries and Wildlife, which is going to ask them to find some way to back them up, delay it, whatever. One of the things they can do is claim they don't have enough information and they want more studies. Famous trick they've used many times. Hillary, you got something you want to add?
Yeah, so initially when we had submitted for a combined 6-foot drawdown with the rest of the aquatic plant management part of the NOI, they had sent us, Mass Wildlife had sent us a letter that was pretty scathing, indicating that the drawdown of 6 feet was over 74 acres, up to a third of the lake surface area. And like that letter, I think, is what scared the commission into only allowing the 3-foot drawdown. And honestly, the last commission meeting that we had was like me convincing the commission that even 3-foot drawdown was acceptable. It felt like when they were producing the order of conditions that it was like extremely restrictive. And I worry that if there are similar members on the commission now, that like despite the fact that there's way more milfoil, like they will see that part of things and probably be okay with maybe giving us a couple extra feet for an amendment. But I think they're going to be nervous siding against the EP's
Okay, well, all right,
initial.
so let me get back to this. So the first step is natural heritage, and they have approved this in the past. If they want to not approve it now, they're going to have to come up with a good reason. They really don't have one, but they can drag it out. They can make your life miserable. The second step is the Conservation Commission and the DEP under the Wetlands Protection Act. There you have 7 interests of the act that they have to look at. None of those has been threatened by the drawdown, and the data shows that. So the problem here is that you've got a Fish and Wildlife Agency, they prefer to be called Mass Wildlife, within which resides the Natural Heritage Program, which deals with endangered species, and the DEP, all not liking drawdowns. They went to the trouble of funding a PhD thesis at UMass, which simply did not find major impacts, and it included study of Lake Garfield. So they really don't have a scientific leg to stand on. These commissions are lay people, and these guys seem to speak with authority. They scare them. I wish I truly understood why they don't like drawdowns. I've asked them this point blank multiple times in meetings. I get a different answer every time, and it's all smokescreen. It's hard to grasp. But the bottom line is somebody in Monterey is going to have the guts to stand up with them. If you don't, stop now. It's not worth anybody's time. I would make an amendment and let DEP try to appeal it if they actually have the guts to do so, and I'll bet money they don't. But if they did, then you just look, this is something we've done for years, we're changing it back. If they turn around and say, no, you have to do an NOI, or you decide that let's play nice and do it the way they ask, now you're going back through this review process, and you have to be prepared at every step to counter the things they will say. Now, I have a couple questions for you. How are Conservation Commission meetings it's recorded? Is it recorded, or is it just somebody writing it down?
Well, for a year, I was on the Conservation Commission, and I was very precipitous about saying we needed to record it. And they resisted me. Finally, they took a little, dictaphone and put it there. And, I explained to them, it should be open meeting, it should be on a Zoom, and it should be recorded, and AI can make your minutes for you. But I don't know that I don't know if they're still on the dictaphone thing, but, I think it's ridiculous. I think it's a really not serving the public here for them to be a lack of transparency. Not to mention.
Okay, so the follow-up question. Did someone from any state agency actually speak at the meeting? I gather Mark Stimson did. I don't know if Todd Richards did.
No.
Only Mark.
Only Mark,
okay.
And he shows up all the time. He's going to show up this time.
All right, then everything else you got in writing from them?
Right.
Yes.
You actually have the letter where supposedly Todd Richards says it doesn't work on milfoil? This is what I've been told.
No.
No, that was a conversation that I had with him. I have
Okay.
the letter
See, now,
from.
everything's got to be documented. And somebody needs to look at the letter you got from Natural Heritage, because it sounds to me like they're pulling a trick they've used for years. They're not telling you that it can't be approved because of the depth of drawdown. They're telling you that this, under their jurisdiction, it's not going to harm the endangered species. But wow, if you look at the wildlife interests and the Wetlands Protection Act and everything else, this stuff is really bad for it. They have no jurisdiction, no power to tell you that. They just do it anyway, and they make the transition in the letter so it sounds like they're issuing an official decree. They've done it many, many times before.
Yeah, so one of their big sticking points was that their drawdown refill, if it was a 6-foot refill, was going to take too long and that it was not going to be completed by April 1st, which is what their
Right,
goal
and
was.
April 1st is a totally fictitious deadline. The average average ice out date in the Berkshires over the long period is April 7th. If you take just the last decade or so, it's the tail end of March. The temperature is what controls when fish spawn, and it's not for at least 10 days until after the ice is out, and often longer. So
Yeah,
again,
so Todd made
all
a
been
comment to
done.
me.
Science is all documented. They're just
Yeah.
waving arms and smoke screams at stuff.
We've never had trouble refilling the lake. I mean, we can do it April 1st, no problem at all.
That's not what was said in this letter. They actually referenced that study and had the drawdown comparisons from 2014, 15, 16, and 17, indicating that it was not by April 1st and 2/3.
Right, but that's what they started.
How far
So
down
just let
was
me
it on April
make
1st?
myself clear here. I agree with everything that Ken is saying. I'm not trying to say that it's not the
No,
case.
no, but you're giving us
Yeah.
factual information. That's useful.
Yeah, I think the question here is if we go the full route requesting 6 foot with a new NOI, or we go the full route requesting 6 feet with an amendment, either way, you might jeopardize not actually getting a drawdown this next winter. I could potentially open up conversations to be less uniform from year to year. So we could try to make an amendment for a 4.5 foot drawdown and see if the commission and Mass Wildlife is more amenable to that, because it would be less water volume, less surface area, still better in terms of milfoil control. And then I had also suggested to Mike that we could potentially do alternating years of deep drawdowns and shallow drawdowns, which, like, in the long run, probably that's not in your best interest. The 6 foot drawdown is in your best interest. It is in the best interest of controlling Eurasian milfoil. And as Ken said, it's supported by the science and the history at Garfield specifically. I worry that there's going to be problems. And if you do put yourself on the spot like that, it might risk a drawdown for this winter.
So Hillary, you have the data. What's the difference in surface area with a 3 foot versus a 4.5 foot?
A 3 foot drawdown is about 25 acres. A 6 foot drawdown is about 75 acres. And that's a comparison of about 10 to about 28% of the lake surface area.
So that sounds not, and how much is 6 feet?
Yeah, so one of the other issues about the 6 foot drawdown is that they're requiring you to maintain downstream flow of a certain amount. And the downstream flow of a certain amount is not going to be able to draw down 6 feet within the time that they want of like 30 days from November 1st to December 1st. It's like really difficult to achieve that with the downstream flow they're requiring.
Well, it was 2 inches per day, right?
It was 1.96 CFS.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So back up a minute.
Which equated to 2 inches about.
A couple of things you need to keep in mind. The document that's out there, that's the document of record, the 2004 Generic Environmental Impact Report, is a guidance document. It is not law. It is not regulation. You are not required to follow it. The drawdown part is grossly misrepresented. I fought it when it got produced in the first place and lost the battle then. When we redid it, which is the new manual, which is not yet out, and I don't know when it will be. They're claiming by the end of this year, but I wouldn't bet money on it. They changed a lot of that. They're not using those guidelines anymore. They're using actual flow values either for the lake or stuff that comes off of Stream Stats, which is a USGS program that's no longer restricted to 4 CFS per square mile of watershed. That's out the window. Again, the science is understandable and reasonable. You could do your 6-foot drawdown. That's not really the problem. They may claim otherwise, but you've got to look very carefully at what they have jurisdiction over and what they don't. Fish and Wildlife has no jurisdiction. You have to listen to their comments. That's all. They have no right, they have no permit authority whatsoever, other than the Natural Heritage Program, which is about the endangered species, which is an annual species of pondweed that is in no way threatened by this. In fact, it might be threatened by not doing the drawdown because now the milfoil fills in the space it might otherwise occupy. It's a seed-producing annual. Drawdown doesn't hurt it. So, and again, they know this because in the past they've approved it based on that. But what they do is they then make their comments relative to the Wetlands Protection Act. And unfortunately, all the science that they supported shows they're wrong, but they're still doing it. And they've actually removed a lot of that information from the new manual. I'm still fighting that battle. I've written all this down and provided it to Mike Germain. He has my complete testimony. It should certainly go to Hillary. You saw it drafted, I think, Hillary.
I did, yeah.
It lays all this out. But what she's telling you is correct. They don't like drawdown, and they're going to do anything they can to stop you. This is a test case for them. They already tried it over at Goose Pond, and they failed. The Conservation Commission told them to get lost. They're doing it to Bear Hill Pond in Harvard, and they're fighting it there. So this is like, they think they're in a position now to make these claims because there's nothing in writing. They've brushed the whole thesis under the rug, and they're claiming fish impacts. They're claiming all these other things that have been shown not to occur in Massachusetts by decent science. They actually removed all the fish data from the thesis. Just told the guy, don't put it in there because it didn't show any impacts. So this is the kind of stuff you're dealing with. And again, I wish I understood their real logic for this. I don't. It is one of the bigger drawdowns in the state. Not the biggest, but one of them. It's third or fourth. But it's worked really well for you. There's nothing wrong with your fish community. There's nothing wrong with your native plant community. There really isn't a problem here. But somebody's going to have the guts to stand up with them and listen to the abuse they're going to give you and go through the process. You can't just throw it out there and expect they're going to be your buddies. They're adversarial. This state is a mess that way.
So Trevor has a question.
Two comments. One is a question. Are we in the Lake Committee agreeing on wanting to pursue 6-foot drawdown, right?
Yes.
That's not a discussion we're having internally.
Right.
So if we are basing our arguments on scientific research and papers, which we seem to have, and they don't have jurisdiction over deciding what is done, what's the actual problem, or why are we shying away from approaching a 6-foot drawdown?
Well, Concom has to approve it. And last time when I was on Concom, they were very intimidated by Stenson and the letter from Fish and Wildlife. So they misunderstood, like Ken is saying, they misunderstood that they had no choice. But we know they have a choice. So between now and when we put in our amendment or NOI, I mean, we have to talk to the Conservation Commission so they understand, you know, what their rights are and what can happen. The only thing that can happen if they approve us is DEP can make an appeal. And Ken, you can tell us what the chances of them appealing it is.
Ken, I also just wanted to make sure you know this was proposed as an ecological restoration limited project, and that's how it's permitted currently for the 3-foot drawdown. And that
it's a invasive species control project. That's what they're for. It's, yes. I mean, there's a pathway to do this through the Wetlands Protection Act. The whole thing of the depth of drawdown was a real sticking point for Mass Wildlife for years. They finally funded this thesis to try to get at it, and the answer was they didn't find hardly any of the impacts that they thought they would. They just weren't there. And included studying Lake Garfield. So, you know, it's like, I don't understand why they can't abide by the science, but they don't like it. They've got DEP convinced to be their mouthpiece and go to meetings and browbeat people into these things, and commissions just don't have the support or the savvy to stand up to them. I think Greg's got questions or comments there.
If I could, and thank you both to Ken and Hillary for your input, and certainly the select board for willing to have this joint meeting. So my question is procedurally, are the action steps moving forward, if I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that if the Conservation Commission in Monterey does not agree with us and does not make a presentation or support a 6-foot drawdown to the state, are we literally dead in the water then on that 6-foot drawdown?
No, you can appeal their decision.
Okay, so then I go back. So then my point is, I mean, I go to this, and I've addressed this to the select board. One of the reasons, we've talked about this over a period of time in the Lake Garfield work group over a period of months. And the issue is we're grateful that the town has, decided to make it a line item and this year allocated 62.5 towards the dash. But we know that, we've used over a period of years, and Ken working with you for years, we call it, sort of it was a three-legged stool, term by analogy. We had the drawdown, we had the dash, and we had the town, submitting some money as well, and the Friends of Lake Garfield. But if the Concom doesn't go to bat for this, I'm concerned. So I'm asking the select board, does the select board intend to attend this joint meeting, and anyone on the select board intending to, after this meeting, to make a determination if the select board is going to follow recommendations of the Lake Garfield work group and advocate to the Conservation Commission to support this drawdown?
I think Susan has.
I have a question about process. So we're talking about either a new NOI or an amendment. We're submitting either of those things to the Concom.
Yes.
If you submit, and the concern is that either one might delay and we might end up not being able to do any drawdown this year. But based on what Ken and actually Hillary have said, at this moment, if you had to ask me, I'd say, based on the fact that we have historically done 6-foot drawdowns for many years, and we know that it was successful for controlling weed populations, to me, it feels like it's an amendment. But my question is the Concom, is it under the Concom's control whether they accept as an amendment?
Yes.
Or, okay.
Yeah.
So it's the Concom, not the DEP, who has control.
Right, yeah, I mean, the DEP, he can come and say anything he wants at the meeting. He said all kinds of garbage in the past. He told us, you'll be lucky if you get any drawdown at all. And so you'll be lucky if you get 2 feet. I mean, he talks like this.
Right.
I mean, I'm quoting him verbatim.
And yet he has actual no control.
Right, exactly. So he bullies, just like Ken said, he just bullies the Concom. So I think our role here tonight is to figure out how we talk to Concom before the meeting so they understand what I know, they're independent. We don't want to feel like we're pressuring them, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But I think they need to understand what their rules are. They don't have an agent now. They don't have an agent. So the only person you can talk to really that has any influence is Noel. So you guys need to sit down with Noel and talk to her.
Well, we can, but in the end of the day, it's for commission.
Right.
Ken, this is a weird question to ask, but you've obviously created that new manual that's under debate and hasn't yet been accepted. How many pages is the original manuscript of that?
The drawdown section, maybe 15.
Pardon?
There's an appendix though, because they refused to put all the information in that we wanted. There's an appendix that walks people through how to go about applying for drawdown and everything you need to look at if you want to go more than 3 feet, which is what they've settled on, 3 feet or 25% of the littoral zone is what they're looking for. If you look at all the drawdowns in Massachusetts, 3 foot matches up on average with 29% of the littoral zone. They didn't like 29%. They wanted 10. We suggested 50, and it went back and forth in a totally non-scientific debate between agencies, and they came up with 25%. So Lake Garfield is well over that, and it's more than 3 feet. Because it already exists, you're grandfathered in the sense that you would not have to go through the MEPA process, Massachusetts Environmental Policy Act. But if you don't do this drawdown deeper within 5 years, that goes away and you'll have to go through the MEPA process to get it, which is exactly what they're trying to do to you. They're trying
So
to keep
they,
you out of a deeper drawdown long enough that now it has an even more onerous process to go through.
they
Again, I
already
wish
told
I
us that we should be
understood
doing
why
that
they do
MEPA
this, but
process,
that's the
Ken.
reality.
They advised us that we should be doing the MEPA process. And that was one of the main reasons why we chose to do a 3-foot drawdown to avoid that process.
There's no because the new manual's not in effect, there isn't even any guidance for that. They're selectively pulling out new stuff and old stuff to suit themselves. The reality is the MEPA process doesn't apply to anything that's approved under the GEIR. And the GEIR does not limit you to 3 feet.
What I was proposing was that you give
Can't hear
the
you.
Concom, what I was proposing was that the Lake Garfield group give the Concom a complete copy of the draft that they're debating. Not what they've finalized so far, because it's not finalized, but the actual draft, which is gonna be a very substantial document from the sound of it, even if you're flagging the appendix, et cetera, so that you can say, look, here is what should be the case, it's endlessly under debate, this shows that the data doesn't support them, we don't know why DEP is off the ranch, but here is the actual solid foundation, and you can read this for yourself. Boom, believe me, I spent a long time in DC, I know what those documents are like. I know it's a big document, and it's gonna be a pain in the butt, but it's probably also a PDF, and they can read it that way. I'm not saying that's gonna work, but at least it provides more information and a different perspective. And if they wish to educate themselves, they'll have that opportunity, and they can read Ken's testimony, which is the short version, if they want.
Question, like Trevor brought up the point, Richard Chapman here, that if you can convince the Conservation Commission that they have the authority, that's the whole battle. We don't have to go any further than that, or am I misunderstanding this?
Well, the DEP can negate or say
They can
that
appeal it.
they don't agree, or they have to appeal it, or they can just say no.
No, they have to appeal it.
To who?
They can issue a
Again, it goes
superseding
against
order of
everything
conditions.
DEP has done in 20 years. They don't like to appeal it. They don't like to go against home rule.
To who would they appeal? Is it a court case, or who do they appeal to?
They would issue a superseding order of conditions.
And can that be contested?
Well, the appeal would start the process that results in the superseding order of conditions.
I see, okay.
And then
who
if
is
you
the-
don't like that, you can appeal yet again, and then it goes to an administrative law judge.
It's an administrative law judge.
Yeah, that's another step beyond that. I'm not suggesting you have to go through all this. None of it's desirable. All of it's a delay. My point is, if you just want to play nice with these people, you are not going to get what you want.
I have a question. The Concom is concerned about preserving the lake in terms of species and wildlife and the health of the lake.
Yep.
So are we, right? We want milfoil to be limited. We want there to be a healthy lake that we can enjoy and swim in. So essentially, we're trying to do the same thing. It seems we are different pages. And I think the key thing, sounds to me, would be get a presentation going that shows in a simple and understandable way as possible, what is the actual surfaces on the lake that we're talking about? How does that impact which species in what way? Using the scientific proof of how new knowledge or about this is telling us that the 6-foot drawdown is actually beneficial, so that we're not seeing it as butting heads, but we're seeing as closing our shoulders together and being side by side and saying, this is from our standpoint and from a scientific standpoint, the way to go forward. It seems to be able to, we need to present the data in a way that
Right.
sits with them better.
Right, which we did last year, but so the tentative plan, providing the select board agrees and the select board supports the 6-foot drawdown, is that we, let's just say theoretically, if everyone agrees, we do the amendment in September meeting, and Hillary's gonna prepare it all. I suggest that Hillary speak first, and then I thought, and she would do all the things you said, Trevor, because she has all the data, and that's what's gonna be in her amendment. And then
I mean, I can
suggest,
speak firsthand with how different the plant community was this year. Like, I
Yeah.
surveyed a vast more amount of Eurasian milfoil in lots of areas of the lake. The maps are like night and day more milfoil this year.
and it's all in the 3 to 6 foot range. And not only that, if you go to the far eastern end of the lake, I'm estimating 10 acres, it might be even more. But when Hillary was out there, like in June, as well as the divers, it was not so dense. That is now pure milfoil, pure milfoil. It's dense, and they didn't see that. So that all happened, and that's all in the 3 to 6 foot range that we never had there before. Not to mention all the 3 to 6 foot everywhere else. You take the small bowl, never had milfoil. They had to work for 10 days on the milfoil in the small bowl, because a lot of the small bowls is 3 to 6 feet. Not only that, we had an early breakout of cyanobacteria, none for the rest of the summer so far. And, Ken and Hillary can speak to that. I don't think we can prove that was caused by it, but I think theoretically it could have been, right?
So when we talk about water quality and the impacts of drawdown on water quality, one of the benefits of controlling very dense shoreline plant growth is increasing dissolved oxygen in the shoreline area and potentially reducing the amount of nutrients loaded from organic sediments, and also increasing habitat in that way. We spoke about that to the commission last year, and that was one of the main points of supporting it, is like an ecological restoration limited project, even in the areas that were controlling native plants and milfoil at the same time.
I think emphasizing to them that, I expect you already did, but one of, I think, the most persuasive arguments, they're trying to protect the health of the lake. But milfoil as an invasive is not habitat for native species, right? So not only is it out competing the native plant species, but it's not gonna be supporting native invertebrates either,
Fish.
right? It's not gonna be supporting native fish. It's actually detrimental to the ecological health of the lake. And so realistically, they're not improving the health of the lake by increasing the milfoil population through this choice. And I think the more they understand that the data on the mussels supports there isn't harm to those invertebrates. The data on the fish shows there's no harm to them. The data on the plants shows there is harm to native plants. I mean, what more do they?
You're absolutely correct. Everything you said is right, and that is the right approach to take. The Conservation Commission, unfortunately, from our perspective, is not charged with solving a problem. They're charged with upholding the Wetlands Protection Act. The Wetlands Protection Act is designed to prevent further harm, not to fix problems. That's a legislative problem that we got to live with. But you made the right point. Letting milfoil run wild is damaging to the lake, clearly damaging the lake, to the point where we have a law that says you can't bring this stuff in. We don't have a law that says you have to do anything about it once it's here. That's a mistake, but okay. Dealing with it, say, okay, so what they have to do is say, right, clearly we wanted to combat the milfoil. There's a number of ways to do it. You could spend a whole lot more money on hand harvesting. You could use herbicides. The town didn't want to do that. Mass Wildlife is fine with herbicides. They don't care. You can load that lake up with chemicals. They don't have an issue with that. Don't ask me why. I don't get it. But in the end, you want to use drawdown. It has worked well for you in the past. The data you have collected, the data the state has collected, do not show any serious impacts. And if you just walk through the 8 interests of the Wetlands Protection Act, there's nothing there that the Conservation Commission can hang their hat on to say, oh, that's a negative, we can't allow this. It just isn't there.
Okay, Richard has a question.
As a practical matter, myself as a practical person, if the Conservation Commission can be convinced that this is all correct, obviously, to us, I think we can see that, and they allow the 6-foot drawdown, and DEP or National Heritage or whoever is going to try to stop that, what is their authority to stop it? I mean, can they put a restraining order in?
He just said they do their own order of condition.
Well, so
But they
what's
have
the
to get-
controlling order here?
have to
If the
get-
Conservation Commission says yes, go ahead and do it. So the worst that could happen is they're gonna try to stop us.
Well, if they want to, they can, like Ken said. Ken doesn't think they will.
But where do they get the authority? They
They
don't
have the authority, right? Ken, they have authority to do an overriding order of condition, right?
But does that override what the Conservation
Yes.
Commission said?
Exactly.
Well, they appeal it, which means now it goes to another level to look at it again. And you have
Does
to
that
be
stop
prepared
the
to go to
flow?
that level and fight it out with them.
Does that stop the process when they do that, the appeal?
I'm sorry, what's that?
Does it stop the process when they're going through the appeal? Supposing
Yes,
Conservation
yeah,
Commission.
the existing order of conditions would maintain in place, or they could even claim that that's invalid, which means you wouldn't have a drawdown at all. I don't think they would do that.
Yeah, so one of the concerns I had was the existing order of conditions stated that the continuous water level monitoring data for the last winter drawdown of 3 feet was supposed to be posted on the website, like the Concom website or the Town of Monterey website, and we were not able to get that done for the entire season. You had the data that Michael Germain was collecting alongside of that, and I believe that was publicly posted, but people had to log on and look at the site, and I don't know if the link was actually posted. So technically, Noel might have a problem with that and say that you weren't in compliance with the existing order of conditions.
Well, they know, I reported to them during the winter, during the drawdown, and I made sure they had the link to the water monitor, and they didn't seem to have any problem with that. The only question they had was to have the 0 on top, and I said we couldn't get a decreasing one, so I bought one from 0 to 3 foot and just flipped it upside down. And I asked them, is that okay that it's upside down? It's still accurate. And
Yeah, if you've already spoken to them, I haven't since the October time period, then you don't think it's going to be a problem. That's fine. They might bring it up.
Right. No, I don't think they'll have a problem with that. Yeah, I'm sorry.
So if we went ahead and said we would like to apply for a 6-foot drawdown, and they would appeal that, we would still have the 3 foot that we had last year in
Well, they
place.
could go either way. They could just say, you still have the 3 foot, or they could say you get no drawdown. That's what Ken just said.
Yeah, the rule is you can't have 2 permits for the same activity. So if they approved the 6 foot, then the 3 foot's no longer in play, and then they appeal that, then you have nothing. On the other hand, if you only try to amend it, that's a little different, I think. That means it just reverts back to the 3 feet.
That sounds like a better option.
Does the Concom have to make a finding, like on the ZBA? If someone's applying for something, we make findings, whether we're approving it or denying it. We have to make findings, and there are rules about what we have to find in order to permit it or in order to deny it, and we'll say, we list the findings. They don't have to make any findings, they just make a ruling without the findings.
Right.
I think that if they are looking like they're gonna deny it, you should ask them to make a finding about each of the 8 items that are under their purview. Because I think asking for a written document that states clearly which of the 8 things under their purview were violated puts them in a different situation. If they can't find one of those 8 items which are being violated, it's a lot harder to make a finding that to deny that permit, because it will become apparent to them that they don't have the grounds to do it. That's just I know that's how it works on the ZBA, and it may not be required, but it would be a way to get them to think through the issue, that really there isn't anything to support their position, other than Fish and Wildlife not liking it.
Oh, that's a good point. What's the difference of an amendment versus a new permit? Is there something negative about just doing an amendment?
No, it's just they may say it's not appropriate. That's what Stenson's saying. He's saying it's not a minor change. He's saying that the big change, you need an NOI. And Ken's saying, no, it's a minor alteration. I think.
There's a lot less review with an amendment. The idea is that the change should not be what they call significant. That's a pretty loose term. To give you an example, if you were using herbicides and a new herbicide became available that looked like it would do a better job, you could actually apply for an amendment to your current permit to use the new herbicide. That blows me away because it's a totally different chemical with totally different properties, yet you can do it. But here they're saying to change the depth of your drawdown, which is a fairly minor issue, particularly since you've been doing the deeper drawdown for years. They're saying that's not an amendment. That's a significant change. I don't think it is at all. If you had never done a deeper drawdown, I can see why they might make that claim. Because all you're saying is, look, 3 foot didn't work well for us at all. We need to go back to the 6 foot to protect the lake from this invasive species. That's an amendment. And I don't see any way around that except DEP doesn't like it. So they're looking to try to make you go through the full process, which is just going to draw it out, cost more money, take more time, give more people a chance to take pot shots that you have to deal with. That's all it is.
True. Oh, that's all right. It just seems like the commission must know that there's issue with the lake and that this is not working.
Well,
This 3 foot to
Yeah.
6 foot, change is, it's just not working. I don't understand, other than maybe just falling back on what they said before and the fact that they're not gonna change their minds. We're just gonna do what we're gonna do. But like you said, to get them to do every single item, and in writing, and this is what we, these are the issues with each and every item. I don't see how they can go
Well, the
the other
current
way.
Concom doesn't think that way, okay?
Yeah.
They don't look at doing the best thing for any situation. They look at what's been violated. And they never, when I was on the board, they never helped anyone come to a better solution.
Yeah.
And I'll give you a very just quick example. We had a grant from the state to plant plants that are native plants along the lakefront and do rain gardens, which would prevent or ameliorate a lot of the stormwater runoff, which is leading to the weeds, to the milfoil, to the cyanobacteria. And they approved it, but then they made it impossible for us to do it. So, they said they were going to put liens on people's deeds until they showed 5 years later that the plants were still growing. And I said, well, the worst that happened if the plant dies, it's no worse off than it started when we tried to make improvement. So I said, don't you guys want to improve the environment? And, they don't think that way. At least Noel doesn't think that way.
Well, I think everyone on the board, I don't know if it's Frank and spoken, but where I'm leaning is towards proposing the amendment to go for the 6 foot drawdown, even with the risks that come along with it. And then, once we agree to do that, it's about making the best presentation to Concom that we can. And that's all we can do.
Right. Well, I think I got some ideas for how to do that, but I think before that, maybe you don't feel it's appropriate, but it might be nice for the select board to talk to Concom, or at least the chairman of Concom, and explain that, they shouldn't be intimidated by DEP. You're not telling them what to do, but you don't have to even say that you support it.
Can I say something? I'm not sitting in that room, and I've had my hand up for a while. I value everybody's input here. I sincerely do. But I agree. Justin sort of tried to, let's cut to the chase, and I appreciate what Susan said. I think we're all in consensus that we should move for the amendment. Maybe it gives us another bite of the apple, right? A fallback that maybe we're left with 3 foot if they don't let us do anything, but we have nothing. I think that's our best path forward. And I agree to synchronize or decide what we're going to do with this approach for this joint meeting. Personally, I think we have 2 experts here who, if they're willing to come and speak, should speak in whatever order they're going to, that's the main part of our presentation. I also agree with Michael that whether it's one or several or all of the select board members to be present as well, because we only make recommendations as a Lake Garfield work group to the select board, right? We present to you what we think is best based on working with the lake scientists. And I think there's a consensus here, but there's strength in numbers. And the fact that the town has had the wherewithal with the voters to justify ponying up dough for the dash that's increased this year to 62.5, if I recall correctly. I think the science is going to back it up with what they're talking about, the lack of drawdown, that in a sense, we're going to be throwing good money after bad if we don't get the drawdown to go where it's got to go. I could be wrong, but I'll defer to the scientists. So I think they should be the ones speaking. And then whether Michael, who I feel is the most knowledgeable person on our Lake Garfield working group, and or others want to speak, I don't choose to, but I think someone from the select board should also be present and say, yeah, we think this is a good path forward and a good idea to do, and here's why, and then defer to the scientists. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, no, that's kind of what we're planning, Greg, and I agree with you. The question is, though, would the board be comfortable talking to Noel before the meeting, so we're on the same page about what their role is?
Does it violate the open meeting?
What's that?
Does it violate the
We
open
would have to
meeting?
post it.
It had to be posted.
Yeah, but
Agenda.
Yeah, we can
No, I
lobby to the
mean,
degree that's
Talking.
appropriate and legal
As a group, it has
to the
be posted.
Concom and maybe write a letter, which can, we're happy to.
I think we should do that before the meeting and just not even say what your position is, but you can if you want, but more that you as the board heard from experts about how this process goes and what should happen. And you should say that your understanding, and maybe you want to confirm with someone else, is the Concom is independent. They don't have to listen to the DEP if they don't agree with it. And I don't think they understand that.
I also think, knowing the members of the commission, that they do really care about the health of the lake, and we have to convince them on those points as well, because I don't think any amount of other persuasion, if they think that it's bad for the health of the lake, whether or not it's maybe in their purview, we're probably gonna get a no. So we could try, to the degree appropriate, to lobby them as well on those points of procedure and health, lake health. But I think we're generally in agreement on those points here, and then, we'll do what we can.
So I was
I don't-
hoping you could start with, I'm sorry.
I don't think the select board should, I don't think we should be telling the select board how to approach this now. We're making our recommendations, Mike, with all due respect, but I think the select board has,
We can say
let me
whatever we
finish, please,
want.
Michael, let me
They
finish.
can take it or not
Mike.
take it. I don't think we have to mince our words, Greg. It's up to them what they want to do. We
Right,
don't tell them what to do.
Well, that, just like you're speaking, tell me when you're done, Mike, and tell me when I can speak.
Well, you can speak, but whatever.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So I defer to the
Only
select
interrupt
board. They've heard they've heard the discussions here. I defer to them whether they want to lobby ahead of time and or show up at that meeting with one or several people. That's their decision based on what they're hearing today, and I respect their decision either way. And then we go from there. And I defer to others how to orchestrate this meeting. Whether or not I don't know that I'm going to be able to get there in person. I would try to get there, but I don't know. But hopefully others will be, and go from there. And if that frustrates people, I'm sorry, Michael, but that's, I just think it should be their decision on how they want to support it.
I agree 100%, Greg. We're not disagreeing. It's just, whatever. So I think we would start with Hillary, then Ken, and then Matt, who does the dash work. So they're getting all the facts right up front. I think the select board should then talk with their position, and you can just say what Lake Garfield work committee, recommended to you, or however you want to handle it. Like you said, Greg, it's up to them. But, I don't know if we should have the Lake Garfield. I'm certainly not going to say anything. But should we have a representative of the Lake Garfield committee speak or not?
I don't think so.
What about the general public?
Well, they're allowed to speak after the presentation. Everyone can come.
Is it a good idea to have a lot of people there?
I don't know. We don't want to intimidate them. And
At the last meeting, Mike, there was a
when we did this, last year when we did this, they accused me of having people come to a meeting before it was presented and there were a lot of people, all the chairs were full, and they had a lot to say. I did not tell anyone. The only thing I said is, we're not discussing the drawdown this month, it's gonna be next month. That's all I said. I didn't tell them to come to that meeting.
I'm sure that,
So they're gonna be intimidated, yes, by us.
So as an amendment, you have to notify the abutters again, so the community is going to know.
Oh, no, I'm not saying they don't know, but I guess the question was, do we encourage them to come?
I think that, I mean, they had 3 rows of chairs full last time, and there were many people that showed up and spoke positively about the benefits of drawdown. So I don't think that will change. I think those same people will show up this time.
Okay.
Hillary, can I ask you, Hillary, from a procedural standpoint, legally, what's the time frame for the notice requirement to notify the abutters of the amendment prior to the meeting?
I have to look that up, honestly. I don't know off the
That's
top
a
of
key
my head.
point.
2 weeks, I believe.
Okay, so we're up against it, coming up.
Yeah, are we talking about a meeting on the 11th of September?
Third Thursday.
It says second Thursday.
Oh, they changed it?
And on here, it says second Thursday of each month.
No, you might have to go back and change it because that was based upon the person who was the administrative assistant
I see.
and their availability. So that may have changed.
You should check with them and make sure it's actually listed as the right date.
I mean, we spoke to Shannon before she quit, and she told us the date, Hillary, and I passed that along to you, right?
So she told you the
So
following.
the date to our last time we could submit.
I have to look it up. The Concom should have it on their website when their next meeting is.
I just don't want to see this fail in the procedure of not getting it right.
Say second Thursday of each month.
Let's see what it was like.
Mike, did you say Shannon quit?
Shannon got a full-time job up in Pittsfield, so she couldn't do any other thing. So they're not gonna have any, agent. They may have someone try to fill in, they'll know anything about it, or it could possibly be Tim, but Shannon told me it's not gonna be Tim, so I don't know.
So the last meeting, it was basically the agent that came up with the order of conditions. And each point that was brought up for the order of conditions basically it went through me, and like some of them didn't make any sense, and the Conservation Commission had no idea why they didn't make sense, and I had to explain. And so like for each point on the special order of conditions that exists now, like that was a debate to get it the way it is. And it felt like it was basically just like educating everybody in the room as to why it needed to be with what it was, and why certain targets that they had already put on the special conditions didn't make sense and should have been stricken from before it was finalized.
We're pushing an hour.
Okay.
I think that
Right.
I mean, we can move, I'd move that the town move forward with an amendment to look for a 6-foot drawdown.
Motion.
I'll support it as well.
Any other discussion? All right, we'll call a vote from the select board.
Yep.
Yes.
And yes, that unanimously carried, so,
Would you like me to draft a letter on behalf of us?
Yes.
With why we're supporting?
is there anything else that we should answer tonight? I mean, we could continue to game plan, not amongst the quorum of one board or commission, but maybe chairs of each can continue to game plan for the particular meeting, but.
Is there benefit in members of the select board and the Lake Garfield Working Group and myself and Ken contacting Mass Wildlife and trying to schedule a meeting with them ahead of this meeting, ahead of the amendment?
You know better than we do. Is that likely to sway anyone from DP?
What shows we trying?
So the last time I had a meeting with them, I did feel like I was making progress. I was a new person that they had not been speaking to. Ken is like basically one of the only people I think in that area that historically they were getting a lot of flack from about drawdown. And I was basically reiterating what Ken has been saying for the last 30 years. So I do think I was a good second opinion, but I did not obviously come to an agreement yet. I just don't want Mass Wildlife to say that we didn't approach them.
I'm happy to participate in a meeting if you want to have one. Do you guys have an opinion?
I'll try to be there if I can.
Yeah, I'd be in favor of that. Shows we tried. I'm sure Ken will say it's not gonna do any good. Go ahead.
Yeah, Ken. Ken has more experience, by the way, with mass wildlife.
Yeah.
Like
I have
my background is Connecticut and New
a
York.
couple of opinions overall here. I just want to make sure everybody's clear on the history of this. You've been using drawdown off and on for many years at different levels to control milfoil, some more successful than others. The 6-foot drawdown has done a superior job in that shallow area, keeping it out without any abrasion.
You gotta love when it cuts out. You cut out there, Ken, we missed the good part.
There is this effort on
Just getting into it. He was getting there.
Oh, he's probably.
I-
Hello, you're back.
I disappeared, I think, so you didn't hear anything. Point is, you're in the scientific right to do what you've been doing. But this isn't completely about science, it's about regulatory processes. The selectmen, not necessarily the ones you have now, but the Board of Selectmen pushed the Friends of Lake Garfield not to use herbicides. They favored the dash approach for things that were in the deeper water. Be that as it may, herbicides have been off the table. You need that drawdown to control the shallow areas because there is no way you're going to be able to afford to do it with dash or any kind of hand harvesting, nor is there enough people around that could do what you need to be done. It's just not practical. So you're in a position where you need that drawdown restored. The selectmen should be offering support for this. If not, I don't know where that's going to put you, but you guys need to be behind the Lake Garfield folks
We've
to get
already
this
said that we
drawdown
are
back.
behind it. There's no question that this select board does support it. We voted
Okay.
5 minutes.
So then with that in mind, you have to decide what the Conservation Commission's role is going to be. It's a little rough with a group that maybe isn't all that experienced or astute on this to just parade all the stuff out of the meeting and look like we're browbeating them into a decision the same way the state did the last time. I think it would make a lot of sense to meet with them once ahead of time as part of their normal meeting to explain everything so they know what they're getting into. That's a thing you can do as conservation commissions, have a new business section or public speak where people can talk. And somebody from Lake Garfield, preferably with someone from the selectmen, can go and explain, look, this did not work out at 3 feet. We don't want to use herbicides. We can't afford to do the level of dash we would have to do. We need this drawdown back. And all the data says there's no real negative impact from it. We need to go this approach. This is what we're going to present to you. You're free to listen to what the state has to tell you, but you need to challenge them at every turn to produce the data. That's the push that has to be put in front of them. You need to focus on the interests of the Wetlands Protection Act. That is the commission's job. And when they do that, they will have to approve this because there just isn't any evidence of negative impacts. Beyond that, can't control the process. If the state decides they like it so little, they want to appeal, fine, let them, let's see what happens. I really don't think that will happen. But this is a test case for the state. Can they convince commissions to back off the drawdowns? That's what they're doing to you.
Thanks, Ken, for spending your time with us, and Hillary. This has been great, exactly what I expected, hearing from 2 experts, one that knows a lot of the politics of Massachusetts, and of course, Hillary, who knows what's been going on at the lake for the past few years as a scientist. So that's really powerful information. Thank you.
And Michael, if you want to give people that are involved in this meeting the testimony I provided to you, what I would say verbally, it's okay by me, so they can at least see what the argument is.
Yeah. Thank you.
I do have one quick question. So, if he's correct, at meeting with them, I won't call it informally, but at a Concom meeting, talk about it without requiring them to make a decision at that time, would give them the time to fully consider it. That would mean that you'd be meeting them in September and then going going back again in October to.
No, I don't want to do that. I was saying either an informal discussion with Jess Noel, if it's appropriate, and if not, have a special meeting with them. We've had special
I
meetings.
believe they have a meeting Thursday, August 21st, no?
Oh, that's right.
It's a third.
That's the third.
Okay, so that would be.
And you can bring up new business. And there is time still to put it on the agenda. If you want to do
I think
that.
at the end of the day, I think part of my hesitancy to go after them this way and the other way, I think that they take their job seriously and they're gonna make the decision they feel great. Which we can try to convince them at certain points, but
I'm not trying
we
to, I don't think you want to try to convince them about the value of a 6-foot drawdown. You just want to hear from them what they think their power is. And if they do they believe that they can make an independent decision without DEP ahead of time telling them what they have to do? See, that's the problem. If they think, and that's what they said last time
well, they respect
when I was on the board.
the circuit, right?
That's the problem. They felt, I mean, this is the word they used when I was on the board. It's like, we have no choice. Stenson told us that. Or, the wildlife letter was that. They said, our hands are tied. And the truth is, their hands are not tied. That's what I want you to talk with them about.
The question I have is, do you know what, I'm gonna sneeze in a second. Excuse me. What, where are the guidelines for the Concom laid out of what their purview actually is? Do you know where that is?
Well, the Water Protection Act,
The WPA,
WPA.
you know?
is all they have to go on. There's no scenic, law, whatever it's called. There's no, that's not relevant here. It's just the WPA. And, they also referred to this, what is it, GUI or? What's it, Ken, the GIU or?
GEIR.
Yeah, that's the current guidance document. It basically says if you're drawing down no more than 3 feet, go ahead, nobody's got anything to say. If you're drawing down more than 3 feet, you really ought to talk to the state agencies, work this out, figure out if there's any real issues with it. You've done that. There have not been demonstrated. In fact, the state did it for themselves, hoping to find issues, and they didn't. So you're free and clear in that regard. There's nothing that says that you can't do this.
As far as regulation, that's true, but I think the Concom misunderstood, and their feeling was that those guidelines, they had to follow those guidelines, and
They do not. Nope.
I know.
Nope, they definitely don't. In fact, many groups haven't, because if you have a bunch of drawdown lakes all going into the same river, if they all do it at once, they could cause a flood. So you have to look at all the different aspects. It's guidance. It's useful guidance, but it's only that. And again, we tried to put a lot more substance into the new manual to explain how the factors interact and what things you could look at. And all the things that favored doing bigger drawdowns were removed at the request of Mass Wildlife. And DCR went along with it. I'm still fighting that in the final version. They don't want people to do again, I wish I understood why. They believe it has negative impacts, but their own research shows that it has not. So it's crazy stuff.
Thanks, Ken.
On the phone. I should be off shortly. Okay.
Thanks.
We have just a few select board.
Okay, so we're gonna adjourn our, motion to adjourn
Can we,
the Lake Garfield
can we
Committee.
set another
Second.
meeting?
Absolutely, yeah.
Can we set another meeting before we adjourn?
Oh, did you set another meeting?
For what?
The next
For us?
Garfield meeting.
I think we did already, didn't we? Did we? Oh, no.
So this is the actual.
All right.
I'm trying to find where it actually went down.
All right. I got somebody else chasing me, so I'm going to sign off.
All right, thank
Thank
you.
you for joining us,
Ken.
Ken.
Yeah.
Thanks,
All
Ken.
right.
Yes, anybody have any?
It's
The
not.
question is usually what they're looking at. Right, exactly.
When do you want to do this?
Yeah.
Thank you for everybody's time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mike, you good?
I think Mike's out of the room, but I think
Okay,
we're
all right.
all set with Lake Garfield stuff, and he'll be in touch, and
Great. Thanks so
thank you
much,
for all your
everyone.
work on this. Is there anything that we need to deal with? We kind of left unanticipated in case anything
No,
came
I
up.
haven't.
Anyone else? Alright,
When are we meeting next week?
well,
Do we have another
2 weeks from tomorrow.
I think,
I think if we need to, the 26th is the question
Right.
mark.
That's what I have on my
But TBD, because Roger won't be here, so.
The only thing I have that's sitting that came in late was it was that, agreement for the South County Connect between all the towns. There's financial, $12,000. It came in after our last meeting, and I wasn't certain.
Is that related to Lynn's grant?
No, it's separate from that. It's
Okay.
the actual dollars that they use for the, I guess it's ancillary to it, but it's the $12,000 direct payment that we have to do every quarter to the, $12,000. $3,000.
Is it a contract?
It
what
just-
did we put in the budget for it?
Well, we don't put anything.
We pay for the
No,
grant.
we
It's
paid for the grant.
but they don't
Gotcha.
have.
When do they need the money?
What's that?
When do they need the first payment?
The first payment will be the first quarter, the end of the first quarter, which will be in September.
Okay, so we'll do it.
They know we're gonna sign it.
Yeah.
It's just, it came in after our last meeting, and it's got financial implications, so I decided to wait.
So on this topic, if the next Concom meeting is
The
the
21st.
21st, I can write, right, no, that's August. That's a week from Thursday.
I don't think it makes sense. I think it's all just strategy of negotiation and persuasion,
Right.
but you're honestly not gonna go in there and, they take their job very seriously, and I think we have to, I
Paul
think
and
Ken and,
Ellen and talk together,
But-
and they heard them and not.
Ken and Hillary really need to talk about the science behind it
Yeah.
and everything. And I think the one kind of point that we can discuss with them is the Conservation Commission's role within all of this and the guidance that they've received from other agencies, but that they have to say at the end of the day. And, I'm more than happy to go to that meeting on the 21st and talk to them about that. But
I
get too
think,
involved,
yeah, no, I think that it would be better calling one of us, right? And
I agree, because I don't want to see like we're ganging up on.
Yeah, and I think she looked at
But are
it,
you,
upset.
the other thing is being able to, Mike was talking about the things going to the lake, filling up the road there. Do we have a retention?
well, so that's Hillary's whole job,
Yeah, okay.
and the dash people.
Yeah, that would be something, and you talked about writing a letter, you have to sign, what you do back then to do it.
I was out on the lake this morning, it is bad.
Everybody.
And that's-
Next time you go out, take some photo.
I don't bring my phone, it's a relaxation time.
Yeah, gotcha.
But.
With the baby in her?
What I just.
Wait till they're teenagers.
Figure out- I'll look at that and see if I can find anything that actually lays out the job on top of it.
Yes, yeah.
Because, the zoning rules actually lay out what our job is. And there are there's guidelines where we have to make the following findings.
Yeah.
I don't know if they have that for Concom, and that could be part of the problem. They try to if they give someone broad jurisdiction, they don't give them any rules to go by. But his
Well, it's
point,
all
they're supposed to
enforcing
be.
WPA.
Right, but that's the point, their job is to enforce WPA, and they're never making findings. And there's 8 things they have to protect, and they can't support saying that there's a problem for any of those 8. They don't really have a leg to stand on. But I don't wanna be adversarial. The question is how to help them see, like, well, maybe be like the CDA and go down the 8 things and see, is there anything that you have do you have questions about any of these 8 items as it pertains to this? Because if you don't, it's hard to support denying it.
Yeah.
Because that's really the process, it has to be clear that one of those things is violated, or more, obviously.
I mean, there's certainly environmental impacts of doing it and not doing it, and it's a very complicated,
It is.
it's not cut and dry like.
No.
But, I mean, I think we're all on the same page, and we think it's the right thing to do, but it's not simple. It's not simple, and I'll give that to them. I think it's hard too when there's state agencies, who, they look up to Mark Stinson because he's kind of a professional who's in charge.
I get it,
But it's,
and then there's this
he
like,
doesn't actually
one of the
have to vote.
scientists,
Yeah.
right, like, I get it. And it is hard, like, it would not be the first time it goes both ways. I've seen it both ways where the federal agency, when I was in DC, is clearly not using science for what they wanna do to either allow something they shouldn't be allowing or deny something they should be allowing, right? Like it goes both ways. So, and it's difficult. Like at the end, you end up in court because you're trying to say, well, the law says this and you're doing that. He's saying he doesn't think that's likely, but I think right now the first step is getting the Concom to be willing to write down what they think is being violated, if they're gonna turn it down, or if they're gonna accept it.
Well, they may also say right off the bat that they don't think it's a valid amendment, and it needs to be a whole new.
They may, but then I'd like to hear why it's not a valid amendment, and I'm
Well,
looking
I
at
think, but it's, like you said, if it's significant, so that is just a discretionary.
it
word,
is,
so-
but then I wanna see them in words, make clear why they think
I could see doubling it, I could see that go either
it
way.
would be if it wasn't for the fact that we've been doing it for years.
What is confusing though as well, is that there was a Concom in the mid-2000s that had them do alternate 3-foot drawdown and 6-foot drawdown. So this idea of 3 foot is not entirely new either. So we've been doing 6 foots, we've been doing 3 foots, they weren't always perfectly 3 feet.
And they're not, it wasn't always perfect, even with 6 feet, it's not always perfect that it solves every problem.
No.
What we do know is it does decrease the milfoil.
Yeah.
It does. I don't really think that that's in question, the question is whether or not that's enough to warrant it, and whether or not that's actually beneficial to the lake. I don't really think that's in question either. I think invasive species are pretty much uniformly problematic.
But also, like Ken said, they're not trying to solve the holistic problem.
Right.
They're saying, does anything violate WPA?
And at the end of the day, if they can't make a ruling that it is, then why are they denying it? Because I know that from the zoning standpoint, if we can't, and we have a lot of discretion, right? What's substantially more detrimental to a neighborhood? Right, like, you don't like it, I don't know, right? Well, the neighbor on my left already did it, why can't I do it, right? Like but at the end of the day, you have to be able to say, here, we always feel like we need to be able to say why. If we're gonna deny something, we need to be able to say why we're denying it, what rule it would be violated, and how we believe it's more detrimental to the neighborhood. And I think that it's only reasonable to ask the Concom with these complicated decisions even more so. Which of the WPA rules do you believe is being violated by this? And what impact will that have to support why you're saying no? And I feel like just saying, well, we don't wanna, that's not adequate, right? There should be more so than that, especially if the science is supporting it. So. Because, and saying that, well, Fish and Wildlife told us no, again, it's not, they can offer their opinion, but they can't tell you what to do. You have to support your own decision.
Alright, well, I'll plan on being at the Concom meeting.
Then
And
I'm
at
not.
our next meeting, we can, finalize the letter.
Letter, and then, can we ultimately, if we all went to the next
Post.
hearing, we'd have to post. I mean, tactically, I guess we have to consider whether we think that's helpful or not helpful.
I don't think it's bad, I mean, we are the applicant,
Right.
the town is the applicant, I don't think it would ever be bad,
We just, yeah, and we.
so, I don't think it would ever be bad. I think Mike's had some unfortunate experiences where kind of when there's just some bad blood for whatever reason, so I think that's why he likes to take a back seat.
Which fair?
So,
I think there is some, just doing some quick little research, so there's definitely some, trying to understand mass DEP versus mass wildlife. There are two separate things, and all, but to their point, might be something that you were talking about. Figure that out, moving forward, understanding that. Because if they're responsible, Concom is responsible to mass DEP, not mass wildlife, then if mass wildlife is telling us what we're supposed to be doing, then there's something that isn't right there.
but at the same time, keep in mind, when we go through the process, part of it is notifying and asking for input from Mass Wildlife.
Through natural.
So it's not unfounded that when they make comments on it, Concom listens,
Right, yeah.
because
No,
it's part of the process.
But I also understand where Mike's and Ken are coming from,
Yeah.
That's all.
They're potentially overreaching.
Yes,
They're-
potentially over.
Particularly if they're not able to support the position with any data. I mean, there's, like, it's one thing if they were just a political thing, but if they are purportedly actual scientists and they are offering a scientific opinion and they cannot support that scientific opinion with actual science and in fact are ignoring the science they paid for because they didn't like the outcome, that is politics, that is not
I think
science.
they're worried too about,
I mean, it's,
my sense is they're worried about a poorly done drawdown could have really bad impacts. Like if the fish weren't where they need to be when they're spawning, right, that could potentially, if the invertebrate all freeze on the lake floor because the draw.
and if you put water into your gas tank, you got a problem, I mean.
Yes, but part of the problem is in Monterey, frankly, and we're familiar with this, is over the years, and part of the reason they had such a time deciding what to do is Monterey did not keep good records about drawdown. Like, records about this huge, very significant activity on Lake Garfield, there's just not, we tried to look for records to tell them, couldn't find it, so it's hard to say, look, we always have the lake back up to the level. By this date, we always had it draw down after this date, because we didn't keep it. And now with that monitor thing, that is a godsend, that we actually have it all and more captured on that.
Whether formally posted or not, we have the data. and
No,
we
I
can
was at a
see it.
Concom meeting where someone,
Looked at
the
it.
agent said, oh, I can't find a link to it, and
It's right on the.
I resent it, so.
Lake Garfield, it's right on the Lake Garfield Committee's webpage.
So they do know.
I'll be up there.
Yeah, I have it as a bookmark on my thing.
Yeah.
I'm always
looking
at
I
it.
don't know what that other thing that Hillary said, she said something else that was supposed to be on the website, I don't recall, like a report or something like that. She said there were two things that were supposed
To be that were in the order of conditions.
I believe so.
But that one of them was done. I
Yeah,
don't know why she didn't.
I don't know what the other one was, I don't know if it was a report or something like that, because I was not given any of that. But,
Maybe she heard, but you know,
Yeah.
I'll ask her one second. No.
So, all right, all set? Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to
Second.
adjourn.
Call vote?
Yes.
Yes, vote to adjourn at 8:21 PM.